Yeah, we're live.
We're live. What's good, Facebook family? The Culture Divide Experiment is back. This is our first show back together. Happy New Year. This is a new format. This is a new year. We're going to have the same bold discussions. The Culture Divide is basically, this is a big world we live in. How do we as a people fit in? And we're going to go through that today. Part of our new format is we're going to be talking about different things like lifestyle. So last year was all about the work world. And Lauren was like a mosquito in my ear saying, do you really just want to just stay in the work world? You really want to just stay right there? You know, she kept planting the seeds. I said, you know what, maybe you're right. Maybe we do branch it out a little bit. And we have. So it's not just the work world anymore. It is our whole entire world. And with the way the world is going, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. Okay, so with that, let me introduce my guest to my left here, my partner, my ride or die, my yin and my yang. She was with me when I was here, then I was here, then when I was back here. My partner, my baby, SJ. Welcome back, baby.
Thank you. Glad to be back. It feels like it's been forever, exactly. But it's good to be back.
Yeah, it was December the last time we were
I
on
know. What is
together.
it?
It's been a minute.
Well, March now. We're in March, so yeah, we're going on 6 months almost.
Yeah. On my left as well, Ms. Lauren, who I like to call my librarian. She, like, if we have a conversation about anything, you need to read the book. Seriously, all these books? She's like, yeah, I'm a reader. So she is our in-house resource person. She's in here telling us how to set up too, right? By the way. So, welcome back, Lauren. Thank you very much for being here.
Hi, everyone. I'm back. Y'all saw me last week.
To my right, the professor, the guy who has all the theories behind all the theories.
Conspiracy theories.
Yeah, I didn't say that.
Sorry.
But he's got a theory behind the theory behind the theory.
Zoom in on my face.
Professor Ken, welcome back, brother. Good to see you, man.
Thank you. Thanks. I'm glad to be back, man. This has been a while, so yeah, fantastic. I'm back in the mix.
And we have a special guest with us, Mr. Juwan Blocker. Did I get that right?
You did.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you for coming in. He is a young gentleman running for the school board, District 3 from Prince George's County.
Yes, sir.
And you got a story behind that, so make sure you stay tuned in. Today, our agenda, what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about some of the things that's been happening with us over the year, or so since the beginning of the year. We're going to talk about the Mothers and Sons Summit that we were at a couple of weeks ago. We're going to talk about the Redefining Manhood and Education that we were at last Saturday. Last Saturday was SJ was down in Miami for the Wine Food Festival. So she was actually posting and having a good time, and I think some ladies looking for a video that you did that you have not posted yet. So
Yes.
I want to call you out on that.
Very lovely ladies that are waiting for a posting. They only followed us because they wanted to see the posting. So
yeah. She'll post it today, okay? I got you. We got you. We're going to make sure we edit everything out just for you, okay? And then finally, we're going to wrap it up with Black Panther. So, amazing movie, but we got some feedback, and I want to make sure
you see Black Panther?
Not yet.
Okay,
Okay,
see this week.
you'll see it. So no spoilers if you haven't seen it, but we are going to talk about some things just to kind of get it out there, and we have some different perspectives in the room, so we're going to have some fun with that. So that's how. So make sure you stay tuned in till the end of the show. But starting off, I want to say, SJ, I'm sorry, I'm throwing you out there in the beginning. So tell us about your experiences, and you don't have to give me the look like you're surprised.
that's not the order in which you have things
going. The team and everything. So SJ, tell us about Miami. So your experiences. So and this new segment is about. For some reason, there's this stigmata that Black people don't like to do things. Wrong. So we have some foodie experiences. We have some folks that like drinking exotic things. We have some folks that like traveling. You know, we know some folks. We have some family members that have never been out of the DMV. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? That is not the case for all Black folks. So, not the case for just about all of us. So I want us to kind of have this thing where we're getting out in the community. We're getting out across the nation and talking about our different experiences. So tell us about the good, the bad, the ugly, the ups and the downs. And you met quite a few folks down there. So tell us about it.
I mean, it was the energy was great. And it was interesting because starting with just the flight into Florida, we actually flew into Fort Lauderdale just because it was just an easier airport to access from this side. But it started with the flight where we, met a lot of interesting people. Had the opportunity to talk to a young man from DeMatha. Well, he's a grown man now, but he's a DeMatha graduate, so that he was headed down for a job interview. But then upon getting to the airport in Fort Lauderdale and waiting for our luggage, so it's that luggage juggle dance where they tell you that your luggage is going to be picked up at one carousel and then they change it to another. So it's a large group of people, and a lot of men were there for some type of golf tournament or something. So that was pretty interesting. Well, standing next to quite a few Caucasian ladies. One says,
"Here we go."
She looks so.
I'm sorry. Let me say it again. Here we go.
One says, I wonder what monkey they got down there throwing around the luggage. And so my sister, who's
that
traveling,
happened in real life.
yes, that happened in real life. So my sister catches it immediately, but you know how you feel like you're having an outer body experience, and you're just like, oh, she didn't just say that. Because we all know that most people that are luggage handlers are people of color, right?
And we don't know that. We can make an
That's
assumption.
That is an assumption and a stereotype.
We
Yeah.
know
Okay.
that people who work there are people who work there.
That is true, but you're
I see some white dudes out there in Southwest.
That is true.
Right.
That is true. You're absolutely right. But the statement alone, like, I felt like it just like flew over my head. Whereas my sister, who has no whisper, is like, oh my God, did she just say that? Did you hear her just say that? I'm like, no, she didn't say that.
So you were straight to dial at that point.
Yeah, because it was like a numbing, shocking feeling. Like, it was just like,
That didn't really just happen.
she didn't just say that. I know that's not what I just heard. But yeah, so it started with that. And then we get our Uber driver, Andrew.
Uh-oh.
Bless Andrew's heart. So Andrew
He needs a
says,
blessing?
no.
No, okay. Doesn't need a blessing? Okay.
So, no, but he needs to be blessed.
He needs to be blessed.
So there's a difference.
Well.
So Andrew starts off by telling me where I need to pick up, I need to be to get picked up. And I'm like, Andrew, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, you need to be between Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. You'll see the sign. I said, Andrew, why can't you just pick me up right where I'm at? I'm watching Uber drivers pull up and pick up people right in front of me. Oh, well, they'll get in trouble. They're not supposed to pick up there. I need you to go here. So then he goes to this rideshare area, and of course, which is like half a mile down the airport. So I miss him, and he's like, well, you could just cancel me and send somebody. I was like, no, you could just drive around and come back and pick me up. Like, why am I going to cancel it? I already know there's a $5 charge for that. You get free $5 off of me. Like, no, you could just loop around, and I'll meet you back down there.
Yeah.
So he finally gets there, and we get in, and he's giving me this whole education on how to catch the Uber at the airport, and I'm just like, look, dude, don't care. So then we just start talking about different things, and as we're talking about, he brings up, yeah, what do you think about the flu virus going around, and everybody's getting the flu? He's like, my wife wanted me to get her the little mask to wear when she's out in public because she's worried about the flu. So I went and got him, and then as soon as she puts them on, she says, oh, I look like I'm Chinese. What?
What? Really?
So,
Why?
once again,
What does the mask have to look like? What is that?
I would think you look like a doctor or something.
Yeah,
Not
but
like
Chinese?
How did you?
well,
how
he
did you come
comes to that conclusion because when you see them, when the swine flu was going around, they were commonly seen wearing the mask. I understand the reference, but still not appropriate. And so, once again, we're looking at each other like,
Really?
really?
This is during your Uber
My
drive,
first
right?
thought would be like a dentist or something.
Dentist, doctor, anything. Not
yeah. So he says, well, he says, oh, I look like a Chinese. And so then we get some kind
like
of way.
a Chinese.
A Chinese, not the Chinese, or a Chinese person.
Or just
It doesn't
Chinese
matter.
or
It doesn't
Asian
even matter
person.
with that.
Or
No,
Asian.
any of it. It just a Chinese. And so then as they start talking about politics, and he's like, oh yeah, I think it's a good idea that they give teachers guns. And my teachers had guns in our school, and I thought he was joking because I'm like,
What school is
what
this?
school is this?
Right.
He's in Florida.
No,
Or Texas.
he actually said Rochester, which I was so
Really?
shocked. And he was an older guy. He said, yeah, our teacher kept a gun right in the drawer. And if somebody acted up, just like what happened with that shooting, that gym teacher, if he had had a gun, he could have saved some lives and before he died. I was like, but he did save lives before he died without a shooting. My whole point is to wrap that whole conversation. This is my beginning of welcome to
Miami.
Florida, right? Is that there's still a lot of ignorance there. And it's funny because there becomes that fine line between ignorance and just sheer stupidity. And sometimes people are ignorant to things and they say things because they don't realize the negative connotation behind it. So it's like, okay, well, were these conversations based on ignorance or were they just just plain stupid.
Hmm.
You know what I mean?
Right.
It could be argued either way, but not what you're expecting
On vacation.
on vacation, but also saying that, wow, we're back in this place now where it's okay to just say these things. And
Whatever you like.
it wasn't that it was never okay before, it's just that people are more comfortable now because they feel like they have more support and more of a platform again.
I actually appreciate open racism. I don't know about anybody else, but I appreciate open racism. I appreciate open prejudice because then I can address it. Then I know how to address it. Then I know where to address it. Then I can actually see where it exists. So, I mean, I don't know. The fact that we've had closet prejudice for probably the last 30 or 40 years, and yes, you know, we have an administration that has kind of allowed the closet to be busted
The
open.
curtains have been pulled back.
Obviously there's negative, there are going to be negative experiences with that. However, it has unified our community in a way that we haven't seen in 60 years, right? And
Civil rights.
exactly, we're unified in a way that we haven't been unified since the civil rights movement, and I can appreciate that it's an awakening. You know, people are like, yeah, I'm woke. Finally, thank God.
Right.
You know, like,
Wipe
you
the
know,
sleep out
too
their
bad,
eyes,
too bad you were asleep. You know, you thought Andrea was your friend at work, and you found out that no, she's really a closet racist. That's okay. You know, now you
And
know.
she still likes you, by the way.
Right, now you know how to move it. Now you know when you didn't get that promotion, or such and such didn't get that job, or you know, you're like, how come I'm always seated here? Now, you know, before you're like, well, maybe it's just my work thing, or maybe it's just that. But now you know the real, and that's actually a good thing because we cannot address what we don't know what to address. We cannot solve a problem that we don't know exists. So, I mean, I kind of appreciate you having that experience and being like, you know, no matter where you go, this exists, and now we know we need to really work hard to
have the conversation.
To have the conversation, but also to dismantle these theories and dismantle these stereotypes, not just about Black people, but about people of color in general. Who we are, what we do. We are not one type of person.
Right.
We are each individually unique, and that doesn't matter what race you are. That doesn't matter, you know, what age you are. Everybody is uniquely who they are. Unfortunately, white Americans have held power for so long, and they have thrown people of color in different buckets that in their heads we are like, you know, if you see a Black person, this Black person must be this thing. If you see an Asian person, this Asian person must be this thing. If you see a Latino person must be this thing. I can actually appreciate hearing them vocalize those stereotypes and hearing them vocalize this prejudice so that we can work even harder to dismantle that, to throw those in the trash, you know, throw the whole stereotype in the trash, you know.
I mean, I think that when I look back on those conversations, both of them, to me it feels more like ignorance. I felt like they honestly didn't know any better. I mean, because she said that about, I wonder what monkey they got down there throwing around the bag, so casually, like I think in her mind, exactly. In her mind, I don't think she meant it as any type of racial, you know, connotation or disparity towards anybody. It was just, you know, and even Andrew with his wife saying the Chinese and
that's what
I'm saying.
But now we're in a space now where it's like, oh, that's how you all truly think about people, right? And so, to your husband's point, you traveling, you having those experiences kind of confirms and affirms what we should be doing. These courageous conversations. Hashtag courageous. Hashtag courageous conversations that we should be having across cultures.
Well, the one thing I want to point out to, and both of you, well, Lauren, you said it specifically, like, folks are waking up. And I'm saying folks are waking up across the board. Not just Black folks are waking up, but white folks are waking up. Asian folks are waking up. It's like, whoa, this is real. So I'll never forget that skit that Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock did on Saturday Night Live, where after the election, and they were just representing us when Trump was elected.
And they were so unsurprised.
And
the white people were so upset. They were devastated. And Chris Rock was drinking. He was like,
I mean, this is what happens, you know.
He was like, it's another day for me.
Right, exactly.
Get up in the morning.
I experienced that for my whole whole life, right?
Right. I mean, so that to me was like that pivotal moment that was like, okay, everybody's waking up.
Yeah.
Everybody across the board, and they see the differences. Now it's like, I never saw it from that perspective before.
Yeah.
America really is racist. You know, I'm just confused. I can't believe, how did this happen? Well, it's always been that way. It's just been quiet.
Yeah.
It's been behind the closed curtains, and you could say it wasn't PC. You know, now it's becoming, well, you know, with some of the way our leadership is speaking, people are feeling more comfortable coming out the way they want to come out.
Well, yeah, when you have a leader who says whatever is absolutely on his mind, that kind of opens the door for that. But that was the last of the negativity on that trip.
Good.
Everything else in there was amazing. The South Beach, the Food Network South Beach Wine and Food Festival for 2018 was absolutely amazing. It was really good. It was a diverse group. Could be a little more diverse in years to come. It's one of those things.
Wasn't enough?
There wasn't enough. I mean, when I say diverse, it wasn't just all one, you know, nationality or race of people. There's people from everywhere, but there could be more people of color in years to come. And that would be something really great to see, not just working the festival, but actually partaking and enjoying the festivities.
So tell us about like your favorite things that you tried.
Oh my gosh, I don't remember that stuff. No, I'm just kidding. There was a lot of booze and alcohol. When you first walked in, no, seriously, when you first walked in, they had this drink that they were giving you. It was a little drink in a can called B4. And very smart, I thought, on their part as, you know, organizing something where they knew there was going to be tons of cocktails available to people. So it said, drink before so you're not drunk after.
Really?
And they had different flavors, and of course, first sip, I was like, I was taken aback because I was like, what the heck is this? Like, it had like a salty Alka-Seltzer flavor to it, but I struggled and drank it down because I was like, well, see.
So just a random B4, take this, and you would actually.
Well, no, I mean, it was. Well, because if it said what it was going to do, I'm like, well, shit.
She was getting ready to get lit. You know what? You're right. I should drink this before.
They gave them out to everyone, right?
Okay.
So, but
we're not going to let the theory behind the theory professor talk on that, you know, because he might have something else to say.
But the reality is that it did work. Because I drank a bunch of random different cocktails, which, you know, you normally don't do, right? Normally you stick with like for like. Like brown, I'm drinking white, I'm drinking wine. No, I tasted whatever I wanted to taste. I was not drunk afterwards. I didn't feel like crap the next morning. Like, all was good. I was able to function the rest of my day. It was really cool because they had a lot of local feature chefs as well as feature chefs from different areas.
Now, you were there to see a specific chef.
Yes, Chef Jackson on Instagram. He is Mr. Foodtastic. He was there, and he is local from Washington, D.C., has a catering company out of D.C. He is also in the Brooklyn area, so it was really cool to have those experiences and to really get to mix and mingle. It's funny that food and alcohol breaks down all barriers.
Oh, man.
It breaks down all barriers.
Yep.
People just want to laugh and talk. They don't care about your age, your demographic, where, you know, none of that. It's just like, oh, wow, have you tried the Scotch egg? And they're like, oh, no, let me try it. You know, it's just,
you're walking around like, you guys have got to do this.
Yeah, it's just a good vibe and good energy. But definitely, I mean, you saw people of color, we were like little sprinkles. It would be nice to see, you know.
Now,
more.
some of the sprinkles that you met, there was a wine lady that you met. Well, tell us about.
Yeah. So the wine lady, she's actually on Instagram at, I think it's _the wine lady or the _wine lady. She's actually a wine connoisseur here in the Prince George's County, DC area. She has the DMV. Yeah, that's better. See, I'm still old school. I'm like, DMV, what is this DMV? You know, when they first said that, I was like, Department of Motor Vehicles? What about right now? That's what I grew up knowing the DMV to be.
We call that the MVA.
Right, NBA.
We call it the DMV, the MVA, because the DMV means the area.
Right, so now everything's flipped, right? But she also has Wine Down Wednesdays coming up. Her name is Jamila. She has Wine Down Wednesdays coming up this coming Wednesday at the Spice Suite.
Okay.
So if you're a wine person.
Yep, definitely.
This is a foodie wine experience.
Yeah, so there's going to be food pairings and, you know, basically talking about different types of wine. But you can follow her right now. She has a birthday coming up on the 27th, so she's doing 27 days of wine. I think yesterday was rosé. rosé all day. And Jamila's thought is that it's 5 o'clock somewhere all the time, so there's never a bad time for
Okay,
wine.
Jamila, you stay lit. You stay lit, Jamila.
Cheers. Salute.
But yeah, there were just so many really great people, and actually coming together with other foodies. While I was down there, some of the people that follow Chef Jay and Jamila, I was able to link up with them, and it's just really a good experience to get around other like-minded people that are traveling for the same cause. Like, we could go to South Beach anytime, but to go for a commonality, like, ooh, I love food, and I love
Wine, I love
wine and alcohol, and
yeah, you got me that when you were talking about all the tequila that was available.
oh yeah.
And then it was like chocolate tequila or something, or
Oh,
chocolate.
the chocolate, the hot Mexican hot chocolate.
Mexican hot chocolate. Okay.
So there were different events, and one person could not have possibly attended every event because there were multiple events going on at the same time every day.
Mm-hmm.
But just to be able to have a nice catalog to pick and choose from as to what best piques your interest was really cool. So that was at the Tequilas After Dark. And it was actually National Margarita Day, so what better day
And then actually take advantage of that.
to take advantage of that.
We are glad that you were able to have that experience. So every week we want to make sure we have something new. That's she used to be all about the work here, wear this, but now we're opening it up to just a true lifestyle experience. And moving on, I want to make sure and thank you for that. That was we missed you. All of the babies at home, and I missed you too. And they looked in and they was like, "Where's mommy?" And mommy's getting lit. No, mommy be back soon, baby.
Mommy's not getting lit every day. Okay.
Barry said he was tired of the TV dinners.
I got a professionally trained chef right next to me.
He was tired of party meals.
I normally and leave them food. Did I not do that this trip?
No, I fended for myself. I cooked though. I did cook.
I know we usually do. I don't know what happened.
So now I want to make sure I introduce our special guest, Mr. Juwan Blocker, and he has an interesting story. I mean, number one, actually, I'm gonna let you tell it. Tell us what you're doing and how you're doing it.
No problem. Well, first, it's truly an honor and privilege to be here. So again, thank you for having me.
Oh, our pleasure.
No, again, thank you. I did to make sure I put that out there. Again, my name is Juwan Blocker. I am the former student member of the Prince George's County Board of Education. So I represented 130,000 Prince George's County Public School students. I graduated from Parkdale High School in Riverdale, Maryland, and I'm now a current history and government major here at Bowie State University.
Wow. So so you've already been a school board member?
I have.
He
Yes.
was a student.
The student member.
The student.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So
Wow.
he
Okay.
represented the students.
130,000.
130,000.
Joanne, are you the youngest person to run for?
I will be the second. I'm actually following, some people say following similar footsteps. I have a mentor who's on the board that's now 24. He ran at the age of 17, got elected at 18.
Wow.
So if I get elected, I will be 20.
Yeah,
Yep,
you'll be
second
20.
youngest.
He's
That's
19.
Yeah,
Wow.
talk about
Wow.
ambition, right?
Yeah, like I already said that off camera. Like I didn't have that type of ambition at 19, 20.
Yeah, it's like if you're doing this now, what's gonna happen when you get like 30?
Tell us about like why, like how did you get into this? Where did this passion come from?
Definitely. So it started off, unfortunately, as a freshman in high school, you're really trying to find your way. And so at one point, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I wanted to fit in and be like everybody else. And so ultimately, I realized that I couldn't be like everybody else, but I did have one talent, and that talent was spoken word poetry. And so ultimately, I met two mentors. One, his name is Neville Adams. He's an English teacher at Parkdale High School. And Clinton Smith, who's another English teacher who is now getting his PhD at Harvard and has a few TED Talks.
Wow.
And so they mentored me. They ultimately taught me the importance of speaking up and telling my story. It was always important for them to say that you have to define your own story, because if you don't, then society will write it for you.
Indeed.
And so ultimately, I learned how to advocate for myself, started speaking up for others. I had to do a spoken word poetry piece about Ferguson and Mike Brown.
Wow.
At a high school, and I realized, I looked around and I said, hey, you had all these prosecutors, judges in the area that were there, but there was only one student, which was me. And so I was very concerned, and ultimately that opened the doors for politics. I actually ran for the Board of Education 2 times before eventually getting elected. But I think that what was most important throughout each and every one of my runs was that despite whatever happened, I told students that I was still going to be involved and engaged. And so, ran for county school board. Unfortunately, lost by about 20 votes. Ran to serve on the Maryland State Board of Education, And this time I was running against 7 different students from across the state of Maryland.
Right.
And so I ended up making it down to top 7. Ultimately lost by about 2 votes.
Wow.
And then I decided to run again for a full term on the Board of Education because I wasn't happy with the leadership of the Board of Education.
Wow.
There it is.
Okay, there it is.
And it went from there. So, while being on the board, there were several things that I learned. They expect you to remember the board to be happy to be in the room. They expect you to put it on your resume. And move forward. Right.
You were like, excuse me, I have something to say.
Right. I held people accountable. Unfortunately, our CEO attempted to cut funding for advanced placement, the college level courses for students. So in the county, historically, we have always covered the $93 cost per exam. So that every student in the school system could take that exam, especially given the fact that about 65% of our students are on free reduced lunch, which is, poverty, right, in a sense. And so we lost a Head Start federal grant. And so after we lost the grant, our CEO came out and he said, well, we have a budget deficit, so we're not going to be able to cover the cost of advanced placement for students that are not on free reduced lunch. And so ultimately, I didn't think it was right, didn't really talk to the community. These students had already been promised that they were going to take this test for free. And so ultimately I worked with about three other board colleagues, created a petition, got over 2,200 signatures. We were able to get on Fox 5 a few different times. Ultimately got that program reinstated. Second thing.
Congrats.
No, I appreciate it. And those students now this year didn't have to worry about paying that cost, which is important. Especially with our mission being to ensure that every student is college and career ready. And so another program that I was a part of in middle school was high school, middle school was a creative writing program. There was a CPA, creative performing arts school. And so again, unfortunately, the CEO attempted to cut the 15-year program because I guess his rationale was the fact that the Maryland State Department of Education didn't recognize it as a fine arts major. And so the reality is that there was no transparency. He sent out letters to the community. They were totally shocked. And again, I have a few other colleagues, we call ourselves the accountability caucus. So before you make a decision to cut anything, you need to talk to the community. He didn't do that. Ultimately, to make a long story short, I was able to work with the community. Did another petition, got over 400 signatures. We were able to get that program permanently reinstated in the school system. So those are just a few things that I have done so far. And
let me ask you a question on that. How often does this happen where things are being cut?
Right.
And it just, a letter goes out, let's say, and then nobody says anything. Like, how often are you seeing something like this? Because obviously certain things are jumping out right at you. Like, what falls through the cracks?
I think a lot of things fall through the crack, unfortunately, because a lot of the community in Prince George's County isn't really directly involved. And I think that, when I door knock and talk to voters, we see a divide. We see you have some parents in certain areas that might be a little more privileged that are extremely involved, and then you have other parts in the county in which they're low income, so those parents don't really have the resources to be really involved. And so ultimately, our county executive, Rashawn Baker, came in, he took over the school system. He has the ability to appoint the CEO, Dr. Kevin Maxwell, the chairman of the board, which is his former brother-in-law, the vice chair, as well as any other vacancies. And so with that school board structure, it made it very hard for elected members of the board to really represent their people.
Represent their people, right? Because he has all the control at the top.
And so those are why we had to fight how we had to fight. And then the biggest thing, or the latest thing, is the graduation fraud and abuse. So I was one of the 4 board members that signed on that letter to the governor. Because I saw it directly. There was a lot of pushback. I mean, people called it on, you saw Dr. Maxwell on Fox 5, politically motivated. And I would just say, as a 12th grader getting ready to leave out, you see how it would be political for me as a student. And so ultimately we were vindicated, and now we are on a mission to change the perspective of the school board, but it starts with making sure that we are electing individuals on the board that actually care.
So what is so tell us about what you, I mean, I don't want your soapbox, but I kind of want your soapbox moment. tell us about what you want to do, what you think needs to happen should you be elected.
Right, definitely. So I'm focused on quite a few different things. Number one, I think that we need to I would like to continue to support, but also expand opportunities and programs for our ESOL students. I think that
English second language.
Sorry about that.
English as a second language.
Yeah, English as a second language.
With subtitle in there.
I think that that's extremely important, especially in my district. My district overall is predominantly Latino.
So tell us what areas that.
Yep. Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, District 3 is so it's the Hyattsville community, Mount Rainier. You have Chillum, Langley Park, Tacoma Park. That's the gist of all of the areas.
Okay.
And so Donald Trump ultimately attempted to end the TPS program.
What's the TPS program?
TPS?
Temporary Protective Services program.
And that's like under DACA.
Yep,
right?
under DACA.
Yes,
Yep,
yes.
and a lot of the community is Latino, and so in some cases, it's not necessarily the student that has to worry about being deported. It's the parents. And so again, I'm all in support of organizations and people that can continue to support our ESOL students. Second, I think we need to reduce wasteful spending for Prince George County Public School System. There's no reason why we have about 80 people sitting in central office making at minimum 6 figures, and you have a CEO making $450,000 with the progress that has not been made and the state of the school system.
That sounds real top heavy.
It's extremely top heavy compared to other.
Think about and then think about the teacher pay raise.
That's
that
my
was
point.
like a smack in the face. What was it, like 2%?
Yeah, we attempted to. Well, I wasn't on the board at that point, but my former board colleagues attempted to make a motion to increase teachers' pay. Unfortunately, that was struck down because we didn't have the votes. Because you have those people on the board that are there for political interest, and they will literally vote whichever way they are told to vote. And so you have that. I also want to strengthen academic programs, after school academic programs. I think that's extremely important because the reality is that because we have so many students in the classroom, a lot of these students across Prince George's County will not necessarily have the opportunity to get that individualized instruction during the class period, which is something that I want to look at and continuing to support for after school programs. So those are really, really my biggest things so far, and I want to work on. I think as a board member, you should work on trying to build your community. Ultimately, it's not about us just sitting behind a desk and us making policy. I mean, it is, but it's not. I think that ultimately we need to go into the community, foster those relationships, but then also teach our community how to advocate. What does advocacy look like? If you have a problem, come up to the school board and advocate. Members of the community shouldn't have to come to us crying, literally, because multiple people have cried because an issue has gone unaddressed. I think you have to be responsive as a board member, and that's something I'm committed to. And again, I tell people, some people mention age. The reality is that, age, it comes up, but I just ask people to look at my progressive track record. I'm not new to this. There's more that I can learn.
He do this, he not new to this.
I've been at this for 5 years. Fighting against increase of property taxes. I was doing that my sophomore year of high school, just different things. So again, I have a lot more to learn, but I am not new when it comes to fighting on behalf of the people that I represent.
Well, let me ask you this, and you just mentioned this. How should the community be reaching out to board members? So, how's that communication open up? Because if you're talking about my resources just aren't there, the only person I know to talk to is the teacher. The teacher's like, I can't help you. So, how do they reach out? Well, the best way to communicate.
The best way. So typically, you can do a few different things. You can go to the PGCPS website. You click your board member. You can actually look at, depending on what school your child goes, so you can look it up on the PGCPS website, and it'll connect you to your school member. Second thing is going to school meetings. And send emails.
And I think the actual involvement being there is probably the most important thing. To piggyback on what you were saying, I have been talking to people in that realm, where they're talking about what the teachers aren't doing and what the schools aren't doing. And I always look at the finger point, and as a reflection of yourself. So what are you doing? If you are a parent and you're not going to those parent-teacher meetings that they have, you're not being involved with the school unless there's some issue that you feel to be, have an outcry against. But when they need parents to help out do this or do that, or they need people, like you said, to voice their concern, to go down to the what they do at the Sasser building down in Upper Marlboro, when they asking people to go down there to advocate for certain things, where are you at? You know, but you want to take off when it's time to complain about something. So I think there's got to be a lot of that parent,
there's a balance to it. There's a lot of balance to it.
Right.
Okay.
Well, Juwan, so how can we follow you to find more about you as you go on your political?
And we want to support you.
Yeah,
And I appreciate everybody's support because that ultimately means a lot, and I've learned that over the past couple of years. So it really means a lot. To learn more about myself and my candidacy, you can visit my website at www.juwan, Blocker, BLOCKER.org. And I guess I would say that's the best way.
Are you on your social media?
I'm on Facebook.
Do you need a social media manager?
Because you did stumble a little bit.
Yeah, I'm on.
Vacation pictures.
Yeah,
We're not gonna talk about
I
that.
have some recommendations.
It's like, I'm still 19.
I'm really active, so I use Twitter and Facebook for the most part. Facebook is Juwan Blocker for PGCPS, Board of Education District 3. And then on Twitter, it's 202 Juwan, JUWAN. I don't use Instagram or anything like that anymore.
Right.
Okay, well, that's great, man.
That's what we want.
Appreciate it.
We don't want to lose you yet because if somehow we're going to get into the conversation about the men in education, redefining manhood in education, and we want to kind of get your input
So
on that.
you're part of this panel right
So
now.
right
So
here.
don't-
Yeah, you
get
can.
quiet.
If you
I
got
know you
time.
think
No, you're still right in this.
No problem.
So, and thank you again for coming on the show. And
Thanks for
folks,
having
be sure to follow him, look for him, go to the website. This is somebody you actually want to support, just because if you're looking at age, what now?
19.
19?
You be 20, yeah.
All right, and he's already got this much experience. Stay on it, okay?
Not even just experience, it's the passion too. And I mean, not to be cliche, like we should be putting people at your age, with your passion, with your level of knowledge in positions of power so that you can make change happen.
And then piggybacking on that, who else is closer to the experience?
Exactly.
Like when you say age, but if you're 20 years removed from the experience, how do you know what's going on now?
That is true.
So,
And I want you to keep that thought up as we talk about the redefining manhood in education, because I think we're going to end just combining these two, because a couple of weeks ago we were at the Mothers and Sons Summit, which was just fantastic. It was amazing. It was heart-wrenching. I mean, there was plenty of times I had dust in my eye. From some of the amazing stories from women that are out there with their children, their sons. So it was like, there was a lot of dust in there at one point. I'm still trying to wipe now. But, and then
invisible dust?
Invisible dust. Dust particles all in the air.
Eyes were sweating.
Right. Sweating. That sounds kind of nasty. So to start off that, and this was the brainchild of Rachel Dolcine. I got your name right. And she was the event coordinator. And she came to us and said, listen, I want you to cover this event. And I was like, absolutely, I'm loving what you're doing. And some of the workshops that she had and the things that we were a part of. We were part of the fireside chat where there was a panel of women that were basically telling their stories of what they went through with their sons, the ups, the downs. There was one woman there that her son had tried to commit suicide at 5 years old. And it was just gut-wrenching of the strength that you saw in these women as they have come up and come out of this. The woman that her son attempted suicide at 5, he's fine, he's well, but they have learned, or she has learned, that there are certain triggers she has to watch in her children or in her son, just because it is a special needs, it is a mental health issue, and there's a lot of things out there that we, as a community, sometimes bury deep. And part of it, and I think one of the workshops were talking about mental health issues and making sure that they're not just pray away issues. So a lot of times in our community, it's all about, oh, he's okay, we're just going to pray that away. And we have to get better at that. And I love what they did, because they even had someone come in, and he was we actually were able to interview him. Mr. Excellence, was that his name?
What was you talking about?
The one with the wooden bow tie.
Men with Class.
Men with Class, Mr.
Yeah.
Class, Mr.
Yeah.
Class. There you go. He was a wooden bow tie. Go back on Facebook.
It was KLASS.
Yep. Because I haven't found him on Facebook. I know he's on Instagram.
He's on Instagram.
He's on Instagram, but be sure to follow him, because he's like amazing style. But he has some great concepts on style and fashion, you know, you can actually go back to our page and look for that interview with him. One of the other interviews, our first interview was with
Justin Hunt.
that was our
Talking
second
about
interview. That was our second interview.
that's-
Well, let me skip to him too. So Justin Hunt was actually the liaison. He used to go between the schools and the YMCA and the community events, and he was the one basically saying, "Listen, we want to bring more activities to the school. We want to make sure that businesses that come into the school area or school district work with the schools to make sure resources are given. So we're not just taking those resources and taking them outside of that area." So it was just great to hear the concept that they were actually on as far as, okay, we're rebuilding the school and we're going to make sure it comes up better than ever. The principal, Miss Monique, she is phenomenal. One of the first things she said was when she was put into position, I needed to hire more black males. That was the first thing she said. That was my off the chain, and you can actually go back and listen to her interview, which is the first one we did this year. Miss Principal Monique Divide, and she's all about it. She's all about it. I'm watching her as we walk through the school. Everyone knows her. She's engaged, and she's young. She's young. So I'm actually going to transition into redefining manhood and education when we were in Prince George's County, and I'm going to kind of merge these conversations as we open this up. But what I loved about the men of Prince George's County schools was public schools. Thank you.
PGCPS.
Thank you.
Because I got made
Yeah,
fun of.
exactly. Was that Curtis that called you out on that? Was that
Curtis called me out. Brother Victorious called me out.
He did.
And Brian, he called me out too.
You did?
Yes.
All three of them?
Yeah, all three of them.
Okay,
I was
all right.
like, oh.
So then now I messed it up. My bad. But I'm loving the way people are looking. So when I say that is, I remember coming up and seeing my teachers and my principals all looked like 40, 50-year-olds, white folks that I could not identify with. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at these folks as they come through, and I'm like, wow. I mean, these young brothers that are principals, swag. I mean, coming in like, dude, where are you going? You going to the club? And it was now granted, it was a weekend thing, but I could identify with him instantly just because it was like, okay, I'll rock something like that. Or it was just, it just looked better, you know?
I mean, listening to you talk about the essentially image, mm-hmm. right? And images that we are used to seeing, because imagery plays such a major role in the decisions that people make in their lives in the present, but mm-hmm. also in their lives in the future. Mm-hmm. And I would argue that you can literally take any image and you can make it a positive connotation or you can make it a negative connotation. Unfortunately, jeans, leather jackets, kind of like more relaxed look typically has like a relaxed connotation to it. Isn't always necessarily resonates with professional
or positive.
Mm-hmm. But who's to say that I cannot be professional and positive in my jeans, in my leather jacket, in my profession?
Yep.
Who's to say that?
Mm-hmm.
We know who's to say that.
Mm-hmm. Whoever's
in power says that. And because white people have been predominantly in power and that's how they've been suited and booted, we all assimilated to that. I'm defying assimilation.
Casual Fridays and stuff.
Ooh, yay!
Think about this though. The first time.
Yeah, but then I've seen SOPs, and then I've worked in corporate, I've worked in nonprofit, I've worked in for-profit, I've worked in research firms, and their standard operating procedures for Casual Friday says no tattered jeans, no jeans with rips in them, t-shirts with no letters on them, and then they give me rules for how I can be casual. Right. It's all about like control and assimilation and making people do what you want. I think there's something very telling that the men showed up that day and they were still positive and they still had a great message, and it had nothing to do with right, because if you would have gone to a conference that was not put on by men of color, I would argue that most of the people there probably would have had on suits. Mm-hmm. Or khakis or button-ups.
Yeah.
We went there. It was very it was a combination of things, but the message wasn't lost.
No.
I didn't feel like the message was lost.
Not at all.
Because of the image that was
being portrayed. It was a great message all across the board. And Kev, you were in some of the workshops. And what was your favorites that you can think of?
I forgot the name, but we talked about how to stay engaged and get the engagement with the students. That was the one that I liked. I only went to one because the second time I was talking to some other people, but that first one was a powerful one, just talking about keeping that engagement and understanding that, you know, we all humans and we all have varying perspectives on things, no matter what age group. So, you know, in kindergartners, they look at the world a different way. They're still understanding. And it correlates to a thought that I have about raising children, is that you're raising them to be adults. And so you have to train them in the fact that they're going to become an adult, because that's where they'll spend most of their life. When you keep a child in the child mindset, then you turn them into adult children, and they don't have a sense of maturity. And this is, you know, I'm not in the K through 12 system. I started there as a substitute teacher working in the school system in my early 20s. Now I'm, you know, teaching in college, and when I interact with my students, I can tell who has a sense of maturity about them versus who doesn't. Who's been, you know, I don't want to say it in a negative way, because some of it is giving things on a plate. Some of it could also just be just having a lack of responsibility, whether by choice or by force. So if they aren't being taught to become adults, it becomes harder for them to get into the adult realm and function. When we are teaching our children and respecting their perspectives on life, and this goes back even with the mothers and sons, something we talked about that. So respecting the fact that our children will have perspectives, they will learn things, and when they're talking to us, not to make it feel like, oh, well, you know, I'm the adult, you should just do what I'm telling you to do, but to create that alignment of realizing that they are people who are they are creating the way that they view the world. And we have, as educators, have a big impact in that based on how we respond to it.
Right.
You know, if we are to shun their questions or their concerns, then they'll go look for those answers other places. Because I was one of them students, you know, one of them kids where my curiosity didn't stop just because somebody couldn't answer the question.
Yeah, I want to tackle that, because like that is a cultural thing in some cases. Because I remember growing up saying and hearing, don't speak till you're spoken to.
Children should do as told.
And don't ask me too many questions. And this is the world now. And I remember when SJ and I first met, she was raising her son to ask questions. And I remember there was this battle in my head, like, well, you're giving him too much, a little bit too much there, you know, just you're the adult, he's the child. But she created this wonderful young man that basically will question the world and look at the world and say, okay, I don't have to necessarily take that. Whereas for the longest time in our culture, we were just, hey, you just sit there and be quiet. You work hard and you be quiet. So when you're talking about students being raised to basically just take this information and just shut up, we had to change, right? And if we don't change with these students, then if they don't identify with us, there's a problem.
And see, and then to piggyback on that, I think the outcome of a positive reinforcement structure like that is students like Jawan, who is creating self-advocacy, where he realizes that, one, he's been around people who have told him that his voice matters. And so he's getting that because your perspective matters. Your perspective is different than other people's perspectives, and therefore your voice is important to that conversation. And now you're becoming a change agent, or you are a change. I mean, you are a change agent.
There was a commercial that I saw recently. I don't know if any of you have seen it. It's been going around Facebook, but literally the commercial was just about what you were talking about. It starts off with a little young boy. It starts off with a young boy. I mean, he happens to be African American. He's the protagonist in the commercial, but the other kids are a part of the commercial too. It's diverse kids. And it starts off with his day. He gets on the school bus. He speaks to the bus driver. The bus driver's too busy checking the attendance list. He gets off the school bus. He speaks to the principal at the front door. She's too busy yelling at some kids who are tapping each other. He goes to his classroom. He speaks to his teacher. She's like, I'll deal with you later. So throughout the day, it kind of shows like they're not responding to him. They're not talking to him. They're not engaging to him. And then it kind of shows what will happen if you don't. Then on the flip side, they go to another, how it should be. He gets on the school bus, the bus driver high fives him, he says, good morning, it's a great interaction. He gets off, he walks into the school, the principal hugs him. She's like, I'm so happy to see your face. He goes to his classroom, and him and his teacher have a special handshake, and he runs in the class, and she's doing it with all the other students. And it shows kind of throughout the day how those two different interactions can change what it means when they become an adult, when they become old enough to make decisions for themselves. And you made a good point about the Mothers and Sons Conference, that conversation that was happening about allowing your kids to be inquisitive and allowing them to have a voice and what that looks like, you know, for your children.
Exactly, because it'll start off, and I don't have children to know firsthand, but I do know people who have children who they do impress that idea upon their children. It may start off as a little discomforting because you're getting asked 1,000 questions, but what it turns into,
I swear to God.
but as you progress through it, what it turns into is having somebody who will then turn around and advocate for you when you need that assistance done the most. And again, just a prime example, because Juwan's on the show, this is what it looks like. He's advocating for adults who have been teachers for 20, 30 years.
Right.
He's advocating for parents who've had issues about the school system and things of that nature, and he's doing it at a very young age. That's where that turns around, and then you see the development of it. You see okay, this is why I go through this, because again, it's about raising adults, and a part of that adult part is that, you know, being community oriented, civic engagement, things of that nature, being involved and impactful.
I want to give Juwan a chance to speak to. Do you feel like that's the environment, whether it's your at home and at school, that you
Right. As far as learning how to speak up, or
well, just in an environment with adults, like what was the engagement with the adults that were responsible for rearing you? That's both at home and at school.
They were understanding. I'll never forget. We were going to a nice gala in D.C. It's Teach for America gala, because he was a Teach for America teacher. And you know, at that time I had on some jeans, had on some Jordans. I'm looking around and I'm like, you know, Mr. Smith, you know, I'm a little nervous. See all these, you know, white people dressed up and everything. I'm like, I feel, you know, underdressed. And then ultimately, you know, he was very confident, and he said, "Don't worry, we had our suits with us, so we were going to change anyways, but still, just that feeling." And so ultimately, you know, having people that are understanding, having people that will, you know, see you for who you are and help build you up is extremely important. And I think that I was very blessed, because I also understand, you know, there are some students that didn't have those opportunities.
Right.
And so I think that in that case, you have to look out for other individuals who were like you, because there was a time in which I wasn't this way. And so I try to reflect that in my leadership. Just because you're not one way, or, you know, you're not given the same attention, I say, okay, well, this is what needs to be addressed, because I know what it feels like.
Right.
And you have to have those people in your life. And what I always suggest for those students who need that help, you know, or at least at the middle and high school level, I try to encourage them to get involved in activities and extracurricular activities, because you can find it, or at least that's how I found it. And that's what I want to do, the same thing for other students who need that nurturing.
That's excellent. We're going to take a quick break, folks. We normally we're trying to keep our show to about 45 minutes, but this was way too engaging. So we're going to actually do like a part 2. So bear with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back in like probably 5 minutes or so. All right. We'll talk to you soon.